Hi, my name is Matthijs Noordzij and I'm from the University of Twente from the Netherlands. And this is a short video lecture on how to write the introduction of a scientific article. Although the introduction of a scientific article can seem a very complex thing to write, in essence, its basic structure is really quite simple. It's like a funnel where you start at the top quite broad and move down and become ever more specific and small, if you will. Although this analogy is wrong in some way, because every introduction of any scientific article is always in its whole quite specific. You really write about a specific hypothesis, a specific idea. So although you start broad, already at the beginning you have a clear focus. So let's start looking at the first paragraph. Where do you start? With the risk of stating the obvious, the first paragraph is really important. It is probably the first thing that the readers of your article will read. So it is really important to immediately make clear what the paper is about and also what the context is of this paper. In this way, the reader is really well prepared to read the rest of the article, and if possible, at the end of the first paragraph, already state the aim of the entire study. It's also necessary to avoid jargon. You have not had time in the first paragraph to explain any concepts or theories or difficult terms or certain measures that you have used that may be very rare. So if possible, completely stay away from this type of jargon and use the rest of your introduction to explain these terms, concepts and theories. So let's take a look at an example. This is from a study of Mundi from 2014, which is about the Muller-Lyer illusion, which is a particular type of perceptual illusion where people have to compare two lines, and one line is often overestimated in terms of length. And what is good about this first paragraph is that the Muller-Lyer illusion is immediately introduced and explained. And then it is mentioned that there are a variety of theories and paradigms that have looked into it and tried to explain the illusion. And this is also the topic of this paper. It tries to test a certain explanation of the Muller-Lyer illusion. I would have liked if this paragraph would have gone on for one more sentence, and I've written a version of what this sentence could have been like. In any case, it starts with the aim of the current study, where without jargon you try to make clear to the reader what is done in this paper, both in terms of goals but already also in terms of tasks of the participants. In this way, the reader is really well prepared for the rest of the article. It might seem logical that I would now start to talk about the second paragraph after the first paragraph, but it's often smart actually if you're writing your introduction to, after you've done a first draft of your first paragraph, to immediately jump to your last paragraph of the introduction. And in the last paragraph you also write your hypothesis for your given experiment. And this is also typically actually the last sentence or piece of sentences of your introduction, where you explicitly state your hypothesis. And when you've done this, then you could also see that the middle part of your introduction should somehow connect the first paragraph that I've just explained with the general aim without much jargon to the hypothesis. And the hypothesis is typically a very specific research statement containing all kinds of jargon about certain experimental paradigms, theories, or strange dependent measures that you've used and that you have explained in your introduction. So once you have this last paragraph and your hypothesis, you can quite easily see what should be in the rest of your introduction to make this hypothesis understandable. But let's first look at an example of a last paragraph. Here is the example of a last paragraph, again from the Mundi article. And as you can read, the author actually chose to put the aim or the purpose of the current study here also in the last paragraph. And it is a relatively short introduction, so this might be a good choice for such a short introduction. I would still like to put something like this actually already at the end of the first paragraph. And then the rest of this final paragraph is an extended hypothesis, really, where you can see that there's some jargon here. Like the word Navon stimuli would not be recognizable for many people. And also global or local processing could be difficult. In addition, there's a reference here to Day's theory of perceptual compromise, which of course should be explained in the rest of the introduction. There's also a clear effect that is expected, which is explained at the end here, where a bias created toward global processing should enhance the illusion, and a bias toward local processing should weaken the illusion. And this is of course an expectation where the reader now expects some clear results later on that should give an answer to this question, whether this is really true. The part of the introduction I have not talked about is of course the middle part, or everything between the first and the last paragraph. And of course there's still a lot to write. You need to provide more background, definitions for terms you're using, and explain theories. But in some way the first and the last paragraph are the most difficult and the most important. And after those two are written in an acceptable way, it becomes to some extent easier to write the middle part. It's difficult to give a full example of all the elements that you could see or have to write in the middle part. This is just one paragraph again from the Mundi article, where this paragraph is focused on the Navon stimuli. This was already a term that I showed in the last paragraph earlier. And yes, this paragraph is dedicated to explaining this and also the connection with this type of stimulus with local and global processing. And given that you've written your hypothesis earlier, you already know that a paragraph like this should be presented for readers to be able to understand the hypothesis that you present. So that's it. A brief video lecture on the introduction of a scientific article. I hope it was helpful. Here above is a checklist that you might apply to a first or second draft of your introduction. And I guess if you can say yes to all these points that are raised in this checklist, you're well on your way to writing a nice introduction. Good luck with writing.